Hello, pup parents, and welcome to today's episode of the Perfect Pup Podcast. My name is Devin. I'm excited for today's episode, particularly because this topic is very, very important to me because it really helped me overcome one of my dog's biggest problem behaviors by using one of her biggest reinforcers. So today's episode, I'm going to talk about how to use a ball, or you could use a toy, any type of play reward for teaching recall or come when called, whatever you like to call it. So let's dive right into it. Too often as pup parents, we get hung up on this mindset of when I'm training, there needs to be treats involved. And don't get me wrong, treats are very, very important. They can be one of the most, if not the strongest reinforcer for most dogs. And it really does just drive the point home when we are wanting to reinforce good behavior. But I think for too many of us, we get in this trap of treats, treats, food, food. That's the only way I'm going to help my dog learn how to do leash walking or recall or, any name, insert a problem behavior, insert a challenging behavior, or insert a behavior you want your dog to learn. And we get in this mindset of, I've got to use treats. So we did an episode a few weeks ago about um, just using like types of reinforcers for our dogs, right? We kind of covered this a little bit, and then we had a comment from her name was Anne on YouTube, and she just said, would love to hear more content about using toys slash play as reinforcers because she said her dog is very toy motivated, very play motivated, and I think a lot of times that play motivation is often equated to like high energy or even sometimes being like hyper or just very intense like we sometimes will say that prey drive or the play drive or, the toy drive. It's like it's often dogs that just can't seem to chill out, which can be a challenge in and of itself. But we're going to talk about how to harness that energy and that focus and that like innate desire to get the toy. We're going to use that to teach our dogs recall. I'm going to explain this as simply as I can, but I do want to give some backstory on this. So, for those of you who maybe just started listening, I have three dogs, and two of them are Labrador retrievers that are like 4 years old ish. And we got them as puppies about 7, 8 months apart. And raising two puppies was extremely difficult. And just like with any dog or any situation with dogs, there was a couple things for our dog Scout they were a little bit more difficult for her. And one of those things was just general reactivity, but especially recall. She did not do well with recall. She often was, if we went to a park, even if it was kind of fenced in, she wanted to, if someone was walking on the other side of the fence, she wanted to chase after them and bark at them. And if, whether it was a dog or a person or a kid or whatever it might be. And when we were outside around distractions, she did not do well with coming back to us. So we had a couple of very interesting and challenging experiences that happened in that context. And my wife and I sat down and we said, okay, we need to figure out a better solution for this. Because when we go outside, Scout does not care about treats. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be like a piece of steak. Like, she just doesn't really care. Like, she will if she's a little bit more calmed down and she's been in the situation for a little bit. But if it's, new environment, it's too much. Like, she cares so much more about her environment around her. So we have known for a long time that our dog Scout loves to fetch. It is her favorite thing. She'll do it all day long if we allowed her and if we had the time to do that. And she it really is like almost a joke, like how much she loves fetch. It's her favorite thing. So we were sitting down talking, trying to figure out, and we're kind of discussing it and basically we come to the conclusion of we need to be using her favorite thing as a strong reinforcer for the behaviors that she doesn't do best. Meaning this, what we started to do was we would take every situation. So we started this on a simple, inside the home, which is really how you should start any behavior. But we would take her ball and we would, do a couple tosses to get her into playing fetch. And then we would, taught like she'd bring it back. We would take a step or two back and we would say, Scout, come. And we would, work on that recall. And we would, even kind of lure her with the ball back towards us. And as soon as she came to us, we would say yes, we'd mark it, and we'd throw it. That was it. We did that a lot, a lot, a lot in our living room. And then we stepped it up into our backyard at the time. And, we would do it even with a chuck it or sometimes just with our hand. But it was almost every throw and not every single one because we didn't want it to be overbearing for her. And we didn't want her to, I think every dog needs a balance of just like fun, but also learning. But we started doing it in the backyard, and we had neighbor dogs who would like to bark, and it used to be where if we tried to get her to come to us when the dogs came outside, it was a lost cause. But when we had the ball, something that she truly really cared about, we could lure her off of those other dogs and and get her to focus on us because of the ball. And then we stepped that up to doing this at the park. We would put her on a 30-foot, we even have a 100-foot long lead. And we would put her on that lead and we would, go to the park to play fetch. And it was a safe environment. She wasn't going to, we did it in a safe manner, um, meaning that if she were to take off, she wouldn't, get injured or anything. There was fences around most of the park. And we would do long throws even, and she'd bring it back to us, and sometimes she would start running off. And whenever she would start not running off, but just like running to get a head start on the fetch, we would call her back to us. As soon as she got to us, we would mark and then throw. And over time, I promise you, did not happen overnight. Like this was probably a 6-month process of consistently every single time we played fetch, incorporating recall training into that fetch. And that's it. That is my that is how you can improve your dog's recall using a ball or using a toy. And you might be saying to yourself, well, my dog is not toy driven, and that's okay. Because if not, you can just use treats in this instance. You got to find what works for your dog. But for those of us who have dogs, especially, breeds like collies and retrievers and shepherds and just kind of high energy, known to love to fetch and to run and to chase things, you've got to use that to your advantage. Don't look at it as only a problem. Look at it as an opportunity to say, I'm going to use my dog's desire to chase after this ball. I can't wrap my head around why she loves it so much, my dog, but that's okay. I don't need to necessarily understand it completely. What I need to do is use that to practice and teach her most challenging behaviors. And where it stands now is I say this in like the most humble way that it has been very awful and a lot of work and a lot of headaches and frustrating moments. But as it stands now, we live in New York City and we can go to Central Park during off leash hours, and I can be confident in my dog's ability to come back to me when I ask because that has been reinforced over time, mostly with the use of a ball. I almost never use treats when I'm teaching recall with my dog Scout because she just doesn't care as much. So, I hope you take away from this a couple things. Number one, don't always look at your dog's somewhat challenging behaviors or behavior traits as challenges, but look at them as opportunities. Meaning, if your dog loves to fetch, if your dog has a somewhat high prey drive, use it to your advantage. Use it during your training. And the second thing I want you to take away from this is every dog is different. And just because you watch a video, even if it's from Pupford, right? Like in the 30-day perfect pup class, which many of you have taken, that's in the Pupford app as well. Most of the recall training that Zach does, it's with treats. And that's okay. And that's generally what's going to work for most dogs, but you have to train the dog in front of you. So I hope you find this helpful. I hope that even if your dog isn't super play motivated, I'm certain you can find some different type of reinforcer than just food to try and teach the more challenging behaviors for your dog. And again, it's going to take time, it's going to take consistency, it's going to take a lot of practice. And even now, we still, every time we go to the park, at least a few times, at least a few throws with Scout, I have her come back to me. And now we've got her to where she'll sit and I can even grab her harness or her collar just to like practice that behavior, right? Of like, if something is about to happen that I don't want her to be involved in, I can get her to come back to me, sit down, I can grab her harness, and then assess the situation. We still do that a handful of times every single time we play fetch, and it has made a world of difference for our dog. So I'm challenging you to try it out. I'm challenging you to find some type of play, some type of non-food reinforcer, and work on behaviors like recall or like wait or like, the look at me behavior. Work on those things with play as the reinforcer, because I'll tell you what, some dogs, they care a lot more about that ball being thrown than a treat being handed to them. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please continue to leave reviews, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I look at all the comments, and I hope this has been helpful. And we will catch you on the next episode.